Going the distance with local sports. This is the X Sports Network.
Hey everyone, this is Landon Saunders.
And this is Nate Patterson with Cloud9 Fiber.
We're excited to finally be able to offer Lawrenceburg our blazing fast, reliable, and affordable fiber internet services.
If you're looking for a more reliable and more affordable provider, we at Cloud9 Fiber have you covered.
Plans start at $50 a month, and we can offer up to a gigabit to your home or business.
We are excited to be able to offer your first month of service entirely free. We encourage you to sign up on cloud9fiber.com or by calling 931-201-9098 so we can help you make the switch today.
For the best meal from south of the border, head to Cocina Real in Puente Grande for lunch and dinner. With a wide array of mouth-watering entrees, there's something for everyone on the menu. And you can't forget the cheese dip. They'll treat you like family, and you'll never leave hungry. Make Cocina Real Mexican Restaurant and Puente Grande Mexican Restaurant your choice for authentic cuisine, located in Lawrenceburg, Tennessee.
Going the distance with local sports. This is the X Sports Network.
And welcome into this Friday edition of Mark My Words here on the X Sports Network. And we'll jump right into it, the previews and predictions for the games this week. And we'll go slate by slate, starting with tonight, 7 p.m. on Fox. We got Iowa, 2-1, going on the road to face Rutgers. A very interesting dynamic between these two Big Ten teams. Rutgers off to a hot start. Quarterback Ethan Kaliakamanis is having a really good year. Iowa got back on track last week against UMass, a big 47-7 win there. But their big thing is trying to get transfer quarterback Mark Gronowski going. Iowa's offense, surprisingly, through 3 games, is averaging 31 points per game. Rutgers, on the other hand, in the upper 40s. And with Iowa having to make a big travel, and Rutgers actually having a pretty good defense this year, this one I'm going to lean towards Rutgers and getting a big win on an upset win, maybe, here on a Friday night. And we'll jump over to Saturday morning, and I'll tell you, this morning slate for Saturday is absolutely loaded from top to bottom. And we'll start Arkansas, 2-1 on the road at Memphis, who is 3-0. That one at 11 a.m. on ABC. Great one. I mean, this one is going to have a ton of points. Taylor Green in Arkansas, that offense has been outstanding all year. And we saw that last week against Ole Miss. You know, had a chance to upset a very good ranked team there. This week they get Memphis, one of those Group of 5 bid stealer teams that's looking to make their statement for this year. Arkansas's offense has been good. Their defense has not been good. I think it's going to come down to Memphis getting a stop. I know Memphis will be able to score on Arkansas's defense. Everyone will be able to score on Arkansas's defense. It's being able to get a stop and force a turnover that's really going to help Memphis pick up a victory here. But again, if Arkansas can limit turnovers, which they've done a pretty good job of this year, there's not many defenses in the country that can stop this. But it also sets Memphis up pretty good for a playoff spot with a win. If they're able to stop Arkansas's offense, then they'll be able to stop anybody in anywhere else around the country. Going to the Big Ten, 11 a.m. on NBC, we have Maryland 3-0 going on the road to face Wisconsin, who is 2-1. Still no Billy Edwards Jr. for Wisconsin. Their quarterback that started the season is still going with a knee injury. And Coach Luke Fickell said that he doesn't want to put a quarterback out there that's not able to do everything he should be able to do, talking about with mobility and throwing on the run, things like that. So we're still going to see the backup quarterback for Wisconsin, and they came off a butt whooping in Tuscaloosa last week against Alabama. That one 38-14. Maryland 3-0 on the season has looked really good, but I think their demise in this game is going to be their quarterback play. While it's been really good this year, it's a freshman, and freshmen struggle on the road, and Camp Randall is one of the toughest places to play in the Big Ten. They're throwing for almost 300 yards a game, but again, being a freshman, it being on the road, I think it's going to be really tough. And Wisconsin, if they want any chance of trying to salvage this year, because definitely not off to a good start, they're going to have to beat Maryland here. If not, we might be talking about Luke Fickell on the hot seat. It's a guy that's in his third year at Wisconsin, and every year seemingly Wisconsin's gotten more and more forgettable. They've kind of gone away from what Wisconsin football typically is. Probably the highest scoring game of the day, SMU and TCU going head-to-head at 11 a.m. on ESPN2. SMU 2-1 on the year. Had that big loss to Baylor in week 2, got their offense back on track last week. TCU, on the other hand, 2-0, had a big week 1 victory against North Carolina. Already had a bye week, and then picked up another win last week. Now, this game is going to have a ton of offense. 108 combined points between the two teams last year. That one was an SMU 66-42 win. And the 104th and maybe final meeting for the Iron Skillet. Currently no games scheduled. And funny enough, 104 meetings between these two teams, yet they have never shared a conference. And, with a team in Dallas and a team in Fort Worth, they're right down the road, so these kids all know each other. The coaches all know each other. It is a fun rivalry that may be the best unranked on unranked game of the day. Now, definitely the highlight of the early slate. Number 17, Texas Tech 3-0 on the road at number 16, 3-0 Utah. That one 11 a.m. on NBC. And we'll go into NBC in a little bit because they have been doing a great job scheduling games. It's going to be Behren Morton versus Devin Dampier, two of the most underrated quarterbacks, I think, in the country, that have kind of come from different backgrounds. Morton was the highest ranked quarterback that Texas Tech had ever signed. Dampier, on the other hand, transferred in from New Mexico State. And Utah, they probably are the best team in the Big 12 right now. They are physical. Their defense is really good. And their offense is strange, to say the least. They have tight ends getting multiple snaps at running back. They have linebackers and safeties and defensive backs coming in on offense and getting snaps. So I like how Kyle Whittingham has mixed things up this year with new offensive coordinator. They get their best players the ball. It doesn't matter what position you play on offense, on defense. Their best players are going to touch the ball, and I think that's going to value Utah a little bit more. It's a 10 a.m. local kick, 11 a.m. Central Time. So it's an early one in Utah for the big noon kickoff, and that will be a good one. Hopping over to ESPN, their first game of the day, 2-1 Syracuse on the road to face Clemson at 1-2. Clemson coming off a big loss last week on the road at Georgia Tech. Syracuse coming off another big win where Steve Angeli threw for another 400 yards. He's currently your leader in passing yards, already over 1,000 yards through 3 games for Syracuse. And this is an interesting dynamic here. Can Syracuse score enough? And that's talking about, can Clemson's defense get enough stops? Because, we know that Clemson's offense, it's stagnant, to say the least. They brought in Garrett Riley 2 years ago to try to spice up the offense, and it's like trying to put makeup on a blobfish. It's Dabo's offense. It's not going to work. It hasn't worked since 2020, and it's still not going to work now. And they have a ton of talent they're wasting. Probably still no Antonio Williams this week from Clemson. Adam Randall's starting to get a little more comfortable running the ball, but Klubnik just looks a little lost. The defense, it should be able to get some stops. I'm going to go with Clemson in this one because I do think they're too talented. We saw what happened when Syracuse faced the talented team. They got their butt whooped, and I think that Clemson will be able to do that. But if Syracuse can go put 2-3 touchdowns up in the first quarter, watch out, because I'm not sure if Clemson can do enough to score that much back. All right, on to the afternoon slate, the big one in this slate. You got number 22 Auburn at 3-0 going on the road to Norman to face number 11 Oklahoma. That one 2:30 ABC. It's fun with Jackson Arnold going back home to Oklahoma, where he ran out of town last year. They had a tough start to last year, a bunch of wide receiver injuries, and it forced Oklahoma to really re-identify themselves. They fired their offensive coordinator early in the season. Jackson Arnold got benched for a little while, a couple weeks for Michael Hawkins, and Oklahoma moved on. They hired Ben Arbuckle. They brought in John Mateer from the transfer portal, and their offense looks awesome. But what looks even maybe almost as impressive is their defense. I mean, Brent Venables is coaching for his job, and he has got a tough defense. Auburn's going to come in and try to run the ball. They've done a really good job with that. Jackson Arnold, he's going to have to throw it, though. Auburn has too many talented receivers. Eric Singleton, the transfer from Georgia Tech, Cam Coleman, one of the best receivers in his class 2 years ago. It's going to be a big one, but I just think that Oklahoma has too much talent for Auburn in this game, it being at Oklahoma as well. It is a revenge game from Auburn. Oklahoma went to the Plains and took care of business last year. Auburn probably needs this one if they have any real dark horse playoff contention, but I think Oklahoma is going to handle business and enter the top 10 in the AP poll next week. Number 21, Michigan, going on the road to face an undefeated Nebraska squad. 2:30 CBS, Dylan Raiola, Bryce Underwood, two of the most talented quarterbacks in previous recruiting classes. An interesting dynamic in this one, Michigan, they're without Sharon Moore. Biff Poggi in his second week as interim head coach for Michigan while Sharon Moore is serving his suspension. And Michigan's offense looked better than it has looked in a couple of years last week against Central Michigan. So it wasn't much of an opponent. But I think they're going to try to stretch it down the field again this week against Nebraska. Nebraska's only played one Power 5 or Power 4 opponent this early in the season, that being that early season game against Cincinnati. And Nebraska didn't look great, but they have looked really good since then. They have really calmed down, and I think this is a big opportunity for them to make that jump from kind of the ever since 2015, 2016, the last time they had a Martinez at quarterback. Nebraska's kind of felt like that bottom tier Big Ten team. This is an opportunity for them to kind of jump into that middle to upper tier in the Big Ten with a big ranked win over Michigan. I don't think Michigan is a top 25 team. I don't think they should be ranked. They probably won't be after this one. But Nebraska is a team I think should be ranked and will probably jump in the top 25 with a win in this one. Tulane, 3-0, going on the road to face number 13 Ole Miss, who's also undefeated, 2:30 ESPN. We saw this matchup a couple years ago. It was a good one. We saw Ole Miss just have a little bit too much for Tulane. It looks like another week and no Austin Simmons for Ole Miss. Played a couple snaps last week against Arkansas, re-aggravated that injury. So it looks like we're going to have Jake Retzlaff, a BYU transfer, going up against Trinidad Chambliss, a Division II transfer quarterback, was the quarterback at Ferris State last year. They went 14-1, won the national championship, so a very talented quarterback in Chambliss. Didn't see as much turnover problems from him as we have from Simmons. Was able to lead Ole Miss to a win against Arkansas last week, which I think if Simmons obviously had a big play in that game and really ended up being the difference with his one touchdown, but with the way Simmons had been turning the ball over, Arkansas may have won that game last week and would have a completely different feeling about both the Arkansas Memphis games and this one right here. Jake Retzlaff, 4 rushing touchdowns last week for Tulane in their big test of the year. They've had several. They've played 2 Power 4 opponents, have beaten both of them in Northwestern and Duke. So now they're taking on Ole Miss with a win here. I think they would be the for sure lock for the Power 4 or the Group of 5 playoff spot at that 12 seed. And they're a talented team. They've taken on some Power 4 teams, so they know that they can play with the big guys. But they'll try to prove that Saturday afternoon. On to the night slate, one that 2 weeks ago when it was announced looked absolutely amazing top to bottom, but now since some injuries and some losses have happened, doesn't look as glamorous. ESPN, 6 o'clock, unranked now, 2-1 South Carolina going on the road to face an undefeated Missouri team. It looks like Lenore Sellers will be good to go for South Carolina, coming back from a concussion against Vanderbilt last week in their big loss. But man, Missouri, they have been an absolute buzzsaw. Kirby Moore, their offensive coordinator, has made Ahmad Hardy and Bo Perbula just look like absolute animals. Perbula only threw for about 150 yards last week, but Hardy ran for 250 through 2.5 quarters. And then they brought in another running back that ran for another 100-plus yards. So, Missouri is so balanced on offense. They can throw the ball over your head. They can run it right down your throat. And their only question for Missouri, though, is the defense. Lenore Sellers is not an easy guy to bring down in the backfield. Neither is their running back. Missouri's had some tackle problems. They've let up a lot of yards, let up a lot of points this year. I think they can get it done in this one, in Como at night, but watch out for Missouri's offense and their defense. Offense, really good. Defense, leaves some to be desired. Arizona State at Baylor, 2-1 teams in the Big 12 trying to vie for a big spot in the Big 12 championship game. This one at 6:30 on Fox. And it's going to be which style prevails. Is ASU going to be able to run the ball against Baylor? Baylor's struggled covering the run this year. Jackson Arnold and Auburn ran all over them in week 1. Or is Baylor's pass game going to be able to get going? Arizona State has a really good pass defense, but Sawyer Robertson's throwing for over 300 yards a game. He's thrown for over 400 yards a handful of times, and he's made Baylor's offense look really good. And they've got a big win against SMU already on the slate for this season. So Baylor could be a sneaky dark horse team in the Big 12. On to Florida and Miami. Again, when this game was scheduled, it looked like a big-time matchup. You're going to have two big quarterbacks going at it in DJ Lagway and Carson Beck. And Florida 1-2 could go 1-3. And this may be Billy Napier's last game. I think Billy Napier and DJ Lagway are both playing for their jobs this week. Lagway had 5 picks last week against LSU. And it wasn't Billy Napier out there throwing pick sixes. I'll just say that. And Beck, this is interesting for Carson Beck. Did not play good last year against Florida with Georgia. Had a couple of picks in that game. And if Lagway was able to play in that entire game last year, Florida may have won it. But this year, two teams in two completely different spots. Miami, they look really good. Both sides of the ball. Was able to beat Notre Dame. Was able to beat USF, kind of shut down that Cinderella story real early, and Florida just trying to get any semblance of anything good going, because if their season stays on the trajectory it is, we may see a 3-win Florida team this year. The game of the week, though, number 9 Illinois, 3-0, going on the road to face number 19 Indiana, also 3-0, the night game on NBC. And before we get into this one, NBC has done a great job this year scheduling games. You had the Notre Dame Texas A&M game last year. The ABC night game last week was Florida LSU. That one wasn't really watched that much. Obviously, not many high expectations on Florida, and both of those teams are kind of boring. NBC has done a great job putting two great teams on the field every week, and this is another classic right here. And fun dynamic. You got two transfer quarterbacks. For Illinois, Luke Altmaier, his second year at Illinois after transferring out of Ole Miss. Indiana with transfer quarterback Fernando Mendoza, transferred from Cal in the offseason. You have two fiery coaches. You got Kurt Cignetti, who is obviously not afraid to say what he says, and Brett Bielema has been around the block now, several times, and he's been really good everywhere he's been. At two non-traditional football powers. Nobody thinks about Illinois and Indiana when it comes to football. These are basketball schools, but I think it's great. One of these teams is going to have a front seat to the Big Ten championship game and maybe a playoff spot. But hey, what more can you ask for in this one? And then our nightcap, 10 p.m. on Fox, Michigan State 3-0, going on the road to face number 25 USC, who is also 3-0. Michigan State, East Lansing is in the Eastern time zone. Obviously, USC in Pacific time. Teams that have to travel over multiple time zones typically don't fare well, and I see this happening again. But I think this puts an interesting target on USC, though. Their offense looks back. Jaden Maeva has been awesome. Can the defense catch up? They fired Alex Grinch, but the defense has still left some to be desired. So we'll go back through, pick the games real quick. Iowa, Rutgers, I'm going to go with Rutgers. I think they have just enough to be able to outscore Iowa, but I think Iowa's defense can make a stand here, and that would give them a lot of confidence heading into the heart of Big Ten play. Arkansas, Memphis. I'm going to go Memphis. Memphis every once in a while has that big game on ABC where they bring in an SEC or a really good team, and typically they've won those games. And I think this Arkansas team leaves a little bit to be desired on the defense, and this could make the American Conference look really interesting early in the season. Maryland, Wisconsin, I'm going Wisconsin. It is so hard to play at Camp Randall, and they're going to be looking to bounce back off a tough game against Alabama last week. SMU, Texas, TCU, I'm going to go with SMU. I think they're going to be able to go on the road and get it done. TCU has looked unstoppable so far this year, but I think they're going to have a hiccup against SMU. They obviously didn't have the defense to stop them last year. We'll see what they got this year. Texas Tech, Utah, kind of already went over this one. I'm going to go with Utah. I think the Utes got a bit too much, and it's going to really put them in the driver's seat for the Big 12 championship. Syracuse, Clemson, I'm going Clemson. Obviously, I think Syracuse will probably cover the spread. It's still somewhere in the 15.5 to 16.5 point range. I think Syracuse can cover, but Clemson going to have to keep their eyes peeled because Syracuse isn't able to run the ball very well, but Clemson, it hasn't shown that they can really stop an air raid yet. So I think it really poses Steve Angeli as the big telltale there. Afternoon slate kind of went over this one already. I'm going to go with Oklahoma over Auburn. I think John Mateer and that Oklahoma defense is going to be just too much for Jackson Arnold and that Auburn offense to handle. I'm going to go with Nebraska, taking down Michigan here. I think Michigan is a good team. I don't think they're a top 25 team, though. I think they're just missing too much on offense. If you're going to be a top 25 team, especially this year with as many good teams that are unranked, you're going to have to be almost perfect, really, to be in the top 25. And I just think that their offense leaves a lot to be desired. It's a little bit like last year's, except I don't think they can run the ball as well. And they obviously are throwing the ball much better, but it's hard to improve. It's hard to kind of revolve to what they went to last year. Tulane, Ole Miss. I'm going to go Tulane in the upset. That's going to be my upset pick of the week. I really, really like Tulane. I really like how Jake Retzlaff, the transfer from BYU, has been able to come in and take over this Tulane team in really about a month and a half, 2 months after transferring in July. I love John Summerall. I think he's probably, like Lane Kiffin said earlier in the week, will probably have an SEC coaching job next year. On to the night game, South Carolina, Missouri. I got Missouri in this one. I think that they just got too much on offense, and we saw South Carolina has not looked good this year, and they finally got exposed last week, and we might see it again this week. And South Carolina had the heartbreaker against Missouri last year. I think Missouri's going to be wanting a little get back in that one. Arizona State and Baylor is a really hard one to pick because these teams have looked so different, through the early parts of the season. Baylor didn't really have too much expectations coming in. Arizona State did. Baylor has been exceeding expectations. Arizona State hasn't. It's on the road in Waco. That's a tough place to play. Give me the Bears in that one. Florida and Miami. I think Miami will probably win this one in the 20 to 30 point range. Miami has just got too much on offense. Their defense is all over this place, and DJ Lagway has looked pedestrian at best this year. Already 5 interceptions, and that was just in one game. I mean, and Miami's defense, I don't know if they're as good as LSU's, but it's definitely going to be close. Illinois, Indiana, I'm going with Illinois. They've already been tested once this year. My thoughts of Indiana's non-conference schedule. They should have just scheduled 3 high schools if that rate. But Illinois has already been tested this year, and they passed that test with flying colors. I think they're going to be able to go on the road and get a big win there. Michigan State, USC, like I said, I think this one's USC's to lose. It's hard to travel as far as Michigan State's traveling week in and week out to be able to compete like that. And USC's defense hasn't been very good. Michigan State's defense has looked good, but I think if USC can really lock down and put something on paper to show that their defense is what their defense can be, I think it just puts another interesting team in the Big Ten. So that will do it for our previews and prediction show here on Mark My Words on the X Sports Network. We're going to have a bunch of fun watching football on Saturday, and we'll be back Monday for some overreactions and kind of go back over the weekend.
Going the distance with local sports. This is the X